Okay, so this is Thursday afternoon, October 6th, and we are at the end of our field trip to Fort Vancouver. We just have one last room to see, so let's go see that. Share the screen, and oh no, did I lose it? I think I did lose it. My computer closed down earlier, so Fort Vancouver virtual field trip. And actually, you can find all sorts of cool things by typing in virtual field trip. The only trick is, can we find where we were? Explore the buildings. Here we go. The blacksmith shop, the bakehouse. Oh, I think we haven't seen the bakehouse. Here we go. And then it looks like we have the blacksmith shop too. All righty.
This building is called the bakehouse. It was used to bake large quantities of sea biscuits, also known as hardtack. For the people who lived and worked in remote areas like Fort Vancouver, finding enough food was an ongoing problem, especially in the first years after a trading post was established. When Fort Vancouver was established in 1825, there was an abundance of wildlife on the land and in the Columbia River. However, there were no shops or stores or places to order food, and the fort did not yet exist. So establishing the land was one of the first things Fort Vancouver employees worked on. Sea biscuits provided basic nourishment to many Fort Vancouver employees. Those who worked near the fort, those who worked at one of the small trading posts in remote areas, the ship's crew who sailed back and forth from England, delivering furs and bringing back supplies. There were also employees on small ships that would sail up and down the Pacific coast, hunting and trading for furs. As long as a sea biscuit stays dry, it will last indefinitely. If a sea biscuit is baked properly, it is as hard as a brick. How would you eat something so hard? They would soak it in a cup of tea or add it to soup, or if they had animal fat, the biscuit would soften when fried. To make sea biscuits, a hardwood fire was built in the front of each 10-foot by 10-foot oven to heat up the bricks. Once the correct temperature was reached, the hot coals would be removed with a rake called a rooker. The oven floor was then swabbed clean with a wet rag on a pole called a scuffle. The freshly formed dough would be placed in the oven with a peel where it would bake for 3 hours. If you wanted to start a farm, what natural resources would you need? A mild climate that wasn't too hot or too cold, plenty of rain, rich soil that could grow crops, and plenty of trees that could be used to build barns, fences, and houses. This area had all of those things, including the Columbia River, that not only provided fresh food and water, but also a means of transportation. Fort Vancouver is only 100 miles from the Pacific Ocean, so ships from all over the world could sail to Fort Vancouver and trade for goods and supplies. By 1845, farming and agriculture was a major part of the work at Fort Vancouver, and most of the employees worked on the farm rather than in the fur trade. Farm production contributed to the profits as well, helping to reduce the amount of food that was brought in from elsewhere. In addition, there were thousands of settlers in the area that needed food and supplies as they established their farms. Dr. John McLaughlin helped many hungry American settlers as they arrived here from the Oregon Trail.
My cat is now eating my glasses. Okay, so that was the bake shop one. Here we go. Let me escape that and see if we can get to the last part of the Fort Vancouver field trip. Where's the one? Oh, my next stop. Here we go, our last one, the blacksmith shop, which is my favorite part of the whole place. So that's very cool. This is only 5 minutes.
Hi there, welcome to the blacksmith shop. My name is Matt Almada. I am one of the volunteer blacksmiths here at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. In here, we probably do 1845 to 1846 blacksmithing, or 1840s blacksmithing, which is during the height of the Hudson's Bay's time period here. Primarily what a blacksmith does is he works, well, historically he works the black metals. Blacksmiths made everything, but they made it all out of iron. Now, one of the things I do here on a daily basis is I'll manufacture things the fort might need. That could be anything from simple hooks to extra nails.
So he
The
still
carpenter
does
shop will bring over
this.
projects sometimes. And even sometimes some rangers will walk in and ask us to make parts for the fort itself, or help identify some stuff. That's where the fun really happens. Now, one of the most popular items we made here, aside from beaver traps, parts, components, and chains, were trade axe heads. Now, I made what's called a round pole trade axe head. Hudson's Bay Company made them all over the world. They were everywhere. Now, out here, though, we would make them. There are some examples that still survive today in museums and in private collections. When we open up the shop in the morning, we'll have a lot of visitors come in, such as you guys. come in and we'll show you demonstrations, we'll show you all kinds of other stuff. But we spent a lot of our time devoting to trying remaking a lot of the historical items that were made here in the 1800s. So we can better understand how they were made. The reason why they were made is because they were a necessity. You didn't have a Home Depot or a Lowe's right next door. You
Uh-oh, that was my cat turning it off. Sorry.
had to
She's
actually
very
go out,
naughty.
and if you didn't have a tool, build it or get it. That's why sometimes the blacksmiths are referred to as a master tool maker. One of the things that I've been asked to tell you guys about today is how we made objects, how we make them. Now, we start off usually with a raw bar form. Now, we had many varieties of steel showing up, about 60, if I remember correctly. We have anywhere from 1/8 size round all the way up to massive chunks showing up. And we would use them in the forge here to make just about anything you can imagine. One question I get asked quite a bit about is whether or not we got paid well. Now, believe it or not, to be a blacksmith in the 1800s, that was a lot of work. Usually you'd start off learning about the time you were about a little older than you guys, be about 11 or 12, maybe even 13. You'd start training under a master smith. Now, the master smith, if you were lucky, you got a good master smith. The way the guild system was set up and the apprenticeship program was set up in the 1800s, in theory, was really good. You would start off, between the ages of 10 to 13, and you would go and you learn how to be a blacksmith. Now, once you learn the technique, it take you anywhere from about 6 to 10 or 12 years. You're in your mid-20s usually by the time you were called a journeyman smith. Now, as a journeyman smith, you would go and you would take your tools and you go on a journey. You spent most of your time learning how to make the tools, learning how to do the trade from your master smith, but you would journey away from him, your tools. All the blacksmiths we had out here were either master smiths or journeyman smiths, and they're all very skilled. Some were skilled in certain ways, some were skilled in other ways, but each one of them had to be able to manufacture everything the Hudson Bay Company needed, anywhere between 20 or 30 pounds per year. Now, as we would go and we manufacture these goods, a lot of people say, where'd the money go? How'd you get paid? Well, we didn't. What they would do is they'd keep an account of how much money we'd earned per year. And every time we needed something, like say I wanted to buy a fancy hat or a cravat, I would have to go ahead and go to the company store where I'd buy my goods. Instead of paying, they would write it down on my account. Now, once I finished my contract here, most blacksmiths usually carry anywhere between a 3 to 10-year contract. Once we left the employment of the Hudson's Bay Company, we would head back to England where we get paid, or another major port where they actually had currency. But we never saw our pay until we got done with our contract. Now, once we finished, we didn't just get our money. Oh, our accounts had to be settled first. Now, if I owed more money than I made, well, my contract would be extended until it was paid off. But it wasn't all that bad. See, they had to convince us blacksmiths to leave England or leave a larger city where we had more amenities to come out here in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we were thousands of miles from anything. So what they would do is they'd give us a contract. The contract stated that we got 2 changes of clothes per year, fresh fruits and vegetables once a week when in season. But more importantly, we got paid good, not really good. But the food was one thing that I've been told, the food is one thing that really got a lot of the blacksmiths out here. Fresh fruits and vegetables, usually potatoes or some salted venison, but it was still fresh. And that was important, especially if you're living in a city. I've had a teacher ask me before, what was the importance of the metals out here? You can make things out of chert, you can make things out of rock. See, metal didn't wear down. Chert, copper, iron, they're all soft. But when you had something like this hammer made out of steel, this won't wear down easily. Now, we didn't just trade steel with just English settlers or fur trappers. We traded with everybody. Hudson's Bay Company traded with the American settlers, missionaries, Native American tribes, anybody who was traveling through, even Americans that were traveling through by boat. Now, the reason why trade was so important on that, the Native Americans had many skills that we didn't have. But the one thing we could do as blacksmiths is we could make trade axe heads. Now, trade axe heads, even knives and things of that nature, those are versatile tools that you wanted to have in the wilderness. Anything that you guys are curious to know about or you want to know more about, please don't hesitate. Contact the Park Service, look at the fort's website, look at the National Parks website, and research. Don't be afraid.
Did you guys see how dirty this guy's hands were from working with all that metal and stuff and in the fire?
Yeah, that looks pretty dirty.
Yeah, so there's more about people, like jobs people had working at Fort Vancouver. It says there's one more stop, but this is about the archaeology and the museum collections at the fort. I don't think we're going to do that one again. So I think we're kind of done with our virtual field trip. And I really hope that you guys will tell your parents, hey, I really, really want to go to Fort Vancouver and see the real place and get to see Fort Vancouver.
I
What do you
already
think?
Dad, that I wanted to go on
I
this
told mine too.
Saturday to